Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 81. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Monday morning, Steelers Nation. And Dave, we were in for a big treat this weekend here with some fantastic divisional games. Of course, always a bummer that when the Steelers are not part of that, as it's their first weekend without Pittsburgh Steelers football. But I think the games really made up for that because, I mean, heck, that game last night, Bills and Chiefs, was, I think, no joke, the best football game I've ever watched.
Yeah, I mean, look, might be a little hyperbole there, right, with the recency of bias, but it was highly entertaining. We talked before the weekend. Boy, what a weekend it seems to be on tap with these games and culminating with that Chiefs-Bills game, which I think we both thought ahead of time would be pretty fantastic, and it certainly did. That felt like that was the Super Bowl that we were watching, I think, last night. Best game ever seen. I don't know about that, but it sure was entertaining. And I think obviously a lot of the talk on this Monday morning will be about, the overtime format and all like that. And I don't know how you feel about that. Look, I know they've already changed this, a few times here. How about getting a stop on defensive side of football if you want the ball back or something along those lines there? Even if you were to move it up, and I understand where people are coming from. Look, if a team gets a field goal, the other team has the opportunity to match it or better it along those lines. And I guess the thinking is, well, why not do it with touchdowns as well too? Okay, I get it. But at some point, it's never going to be enough, I don't think. If you keep, there's always going to be a game come up that says, well, why don't you do this to pacify, to make the overtime rules even better. And then slowly that'll get into, we'll play one more extra quarter, and then what do you do if it's tied from there? Those kind of things. My thought on it is in an offensive game that was definitely full of offense, how about expecting your defense to make a stop or two, in the game? So look, I see both sides of the argument here, and the feeling that it just came down to who called the coin flip, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point, man, you got to, if you're going to win some games, you got to have your defense make some stops, and obviously the Bills didn't get the stop on that on that final Chiefs drive. There that 14 they're going to start printing up them 13-second t-shirts, aren't they? There, why not get a stop there? Then you don't have to worry about going into overtime. But I hate that that's going to be one of the main takeaways from that game, because oh Lord have mercy, there was a lot of offensive play in that game.
Right. Yeah, that's a point I was going to make. I'm more open to the idea of touchdown for touchdown kind of idea. I mean, they're already doing with field goals. It used to be that a field goal would end the game, and they said, look, that's probably not fair or not right. So, let's change that. But
where do you stop from there? Okay, you do the touchdown for touchdown. Mm-hmm. So what happens? Okay, the Chiefs score, and then they go down and get a touchdown. Then the Bills get the ball back, and they go down for a touchdown. What happens when the Chiefs get the ball again and they go down for a touchdown? Should the other team constantly from there on out just have a chance to match every score?
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. Do you think they should go back to the first score? Field goal ends the game in overtime.
No, I mean, I like where it is now. What I'm saying is, why are you going to keep moving?
Yeah. Well, they've already moved the post. So shouldn't, by your logic, they should go back to the field goal ends the game because the defense didn't get a stop to put a team in field goal range.
Well, I mean, I was fine for that, but I mean, now I'm dealing with where we're at now.
Yeah. I don't know. So, the point I want to make is that I want to choose to focus less on that and just enjoy what a great game that was between those two teams, just trading blows back and forth. I mean, they scored whatever it was, 25 points in the last 2 minutes, or I forget what the stat is, but something ridiculous. And so I just want to enjoy. And obviously, I don't want to let the controversy of the rules mask what an unbelievably exciting game that was, especially when the Steelers weren't in it.
So in your perfect overtime world, then it would be just match back and forth until one team couldn't match and you match it? Or is that your
I
thought?
don't have any super strong opinions, but I certainly wouldn't be mad if they went to the idea of, both teams get one possession at least, regardless of what the first team does on their drive.
Okay, so if they both matched each other with a touchdown, then Kansas City come down again and then score a touchdown, then game over then?
Yeah, I think that's the idea behind it. I could support that. But I don't have any incredibly strong feelings behind that. I understand the recency bias of the moment. It just in a game like that, you would have ideally liked to see the Bills get a chance just because of how prolific both offenses were.
All right, what did we learn from this past weekend?
You need great quarterbacks. I mean, and these quarterbacks are going to be in the AFC for a long time. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. Great quarterback play takes you so far. Also, great special teams or lack thereof takes you pretty far as well. Whether those are big kicks, long returns, the punt blocks the Packers had in their loss. Special teams, man.
Field goal block. Wasn't there a field goal block in there too?
Yeah, there was a field goal and a punt block. Yeah, right. Those things kill you. So don't forget about that third phase because everyone forgets about it till it costs them a playoff win.
Everybody gets mad when we go through 53-man roster predictions every season, and we start putting that the Tyler Matakaviches on on the bottom of the roster there and explain it because the Steelers really value those 51, 52, and 53 players, 53rd players to be special teams guys, and you need those Miles Killebrews of the worlds and Tyler Matakaviches of the world, if you ask me. So yeah, that's definitely one takeaway there is the special teams aspect. And there's no running away and hiding from Mike Tomlin probably had probably beside himself looking at that mobility last night there of the quarterback. I think if we learned anything by watching all these games for the most part, and look, Joe Burrow wasn't mobile, was he? We or definitely not as mobile as Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. You look at those two quarterbacks alone, and really, I guess Aaron Rodgers for that. For that matter too, because let me tell you, for an old man, that guy still is able to maneuver in a pocket, along those lines too. But you just look at Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes alone. If you don't have a quarterback, and look, I mean, neither one of those guys are blazingly fast, are they? But the fact is they can maneuver, they have the mobility in the pocket, and they can take off with the football and get some serious yardage when they do. And not only that, those guys are both kind of, can really make some off-platform kind of throws, extend, the old style Ben Roethlisberger.
Nope, you there? You cut out.
Yeah, my Zoom just reconnected all of a sudden for some reason. But anyway, I don't know if I'm going to have one or two recordings here. But anyway, I mean, we just learned learn that you got to have that style of quarterback. And when you look at what those two teams have, and you look at what the Steelers currently have or don't have, there's a large gap, and not only just quarterback play, just you go down both sides of the roster, offense and defense, and see what both those teams have. The Steelers are light years away from having, or at least a full off season away from having any team that can compete with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you notice the quarterback mobility. You notice the pure arm talent, the throws that Mahomes and Josh Allen were making, and you notice the speed at receiver that those teams had, whether that's Hardman or Hill or Gabriel Davis, who had an absurdly good game for Buffalo that'll probably get lost because of the Chiefs winning this one. So all things the Steelers do not have, all things they'll be searching for, all things that are certainly easier said than done to accomplish. Everyone would love to draft the next Mahomes or Josh Allen. Certainly much harder to actually do that.
They grow on trees, don't they?
They do. But the reality is until you start being able to match those things, you're not going to be you're not going to get to these points. You're not going to get to championship games. You might be a competitive team. You might make the playoffs. You might face these teams. But beating these teams is going to be awfully hard to do, even with good defense, because there's just so much talent that it is hard for your defense to consistently get those stops unless your offense can produce and basically win some of those shootouts or at least semi shootouts. So that's the reality of the AFC Pittsburgh's facing for the next decade.
Absolutely, they are. And I think you mentioned another one, too, speed at wide receiver, man, Tyreek Hill. Good night. And Davis with the Bills there. And just you see some of these things, especially at those skill positions, just run away. So, I've talked forever that I think this team needs, some more speed at the wide receiver position. So that would be something I would think that this team goes out and addresses. You need those guys that can, not only get down the field and make the catch 15, 20 yards down the field, but after they catch the football can go the rest of the way. And those two teams certainly have those kind of players there right now. And yeah, I mean, you just look once again, you go back and you look at the totality, especially on the offensive side of football that both those teams have. And look, Pat Freiermuth's a good tight end, but Pat Freiermuth is not Travis Kelce, right?
Sure, he's not. Very few guys are. You don't have to match the Chiefs weapon for weapon, but man, you got to have some ability to get explosive chunk plays. That is kind of the name of the game. I mean, the Chiefs and the Bills both showed they can score in moments. The Rams, for that matter, they get a big, whatever that was, 67-yard completion to set up their game-winning field goal. So chunk plays, man, are the name of the game. They don't require you to go 10, 12, perfect cookie cutter type of drives. They're just big play, change the game, change field position, put yourself in the end zone. And Pittsburgh obviously is not in that place right now.
Right. How many times have we said that this past season? Explosive plays, explosive plays, explosive plays. And not only that, man, just the 20-yarders now are like, just you kind of wrinkle up your nose now if you only get 20 yards. I mean, I think now you really got to look at the double explosive play aspect and the bearing on gains, and especially those that we've talked about that end up in the end zone for sure. And another thing I think we kind of learn, man, or at least will by the time the Super Bowl rolls around, is every team seems to be able to get after the quarter. The better teams seem to be able to get after the quarterback quickly, which is obviously forcing these opposing quarterbacks to be able to extend plays at times. And I think that's kind of you look back at the Steelers and why kind of the game plan, offensive game plan was what it was. A highly concentrated effort to get the football out of Ben Roethlisberger's hands, right? Because he's not mobile and because they didn't have the offensive line that can protect any. I mean, you looked at a couple of decent offensive lines last night in that game against Buffalo and Kansas City, but the defenses were still doing a good job every now and again of getting pressure to force those teams to extend plays of the Mahomes third down runs and those kind of things there. So, man, it just keeps going back to quarterback mobility and all. And Mike Tomlin has sure made that known more than once or twice or three times this past season.
For sure. And I think the mobility brings a different element too, because the way teams rush you is different. They're going to blitz less. You don't blitz Mahomes or you're going to get beat. You don't blitz Stafford or you're going to get beat. Now, he's not a mobile guy. Well, he's less mobile. He's I don't know how you rank him on a scale, but he's not obviously Allen or Mahomes or someone like that, but you still don't blitz him. A lot of those teams, especially against Mahomes and Josh Allen, they're only going to rush 3 with a spy because they're just trying to contain the guy. So they're really kind of giving up on the idea of really getting a concrete rush, and they're just trying to contain. And so that's a benefit usually to the offense. So when you have those really mobile quarterbacks, the way defenses approach and play you kind of alters their game plan and their personality, which I think is a benefit to the Chiefs and to those teams that have those kinds of quarterbacks.
Stafford's not going to be confused with any of those others there, but he's still got a level of mobility to him, right?
Right.
Ability to extend some plays and more importantly, ability to play well against the blitz on top of it. I tell you, watching that, and you had an interesting stat on that. Instead of stat that from Amazon, they ought to call it stat that Kozora or something along those lines there. But or stat that Alex. Burrow was sacked how many times in that game? I mean, you want to talk about a guy that looked immobile.
His offensive line looked. They got to really retool that offensive line.
Sure, but really, he didn't show a lot of escapability. Period. And look, I understand sometimes it's going to be on your offensive line, but there needs to be times where you're able to bail your offensive line out. And I haven't seen that from him. Now, granted, he's still probably, I don't know how much the knee is still playing in, into that with him and all, but he was sacked, 9 times?
9 times.
What was the stat on that?
Yeah, since 1990, only 2 teams, playoff or regular season, has ever won a game where they were sacked 9 times and scored 19 or fewer points. Seahawks in 1990 and the Bengals this weekend. So teams are, I think, 251-1 in those circumstances. So a really improbable win, but that goes back to special teams. You had a kicker, McPherson, that had 2 50-yarders plus the 52, or including the 52-yarder to win it. So those special teams really, won the day for him.
How many explosive plays did they have? You remember?
I do not know. They won the chase, which is par for their course. So probably, I don't know, 3, 4 if I had to guess, but I don't know for a fact how many.
Wow, they actually had 5, if you believe it. The short pass to Chase that went for 57. Short middle to Uzama for 32. Another one to Higgins for 22. Mixon, a short pass for 21, and then another one short to Chase for 21. Well, there's something within there, that we've talked about this season, how Chase and the ability to make big plays, whether it's down the field or short catches there. So that's an aspect there. Tennessee actually had 5 explosive plays in that game as well, too. A couple of them, or 4 of them to A.J. Brown. Boy, he kept them in that game, didn't he? For sure there. I had a feeling the wheels would fall off with them with Tannehill, and especially some of the bad decisions that he's guaranteed. They have nowhere to go right now. They are stuck with Tannehill with 1 more year with what his guarantees are next season. So going to be quite interesting to see the path that maybe Tennessee jumps into that drafting a quarterback thing this year, even though they're almost forced to play, or they are. It seems like they're forced to play Tannehill.
Yep, you there? You dropped out again. Yeah, Dave, with Tannehill, they're kind of a little in that Baker Mayfield Cleveland camp where they're kind of stuck with this guy for at least 1 more year. And so, yeah, it's just hard to match, that high level quarterback play ultimately. And that's where the Steelers will have to hope to get to. I understand, again, much easier said than done. I made the joke last night, the Steelers are going to trot out Mason Rudolph in the AFC with all these guys, and I get it. It's not like any free agent they're going to sign, barring a major trade for a Rodgers or a Carr or someone like that. If they sign a Teddy or a Brissett or Mariota or draft a rookie, 20th overall, it's not going to make me that they're that much more competitive. But it's just the reality that you're going to need high-level quarterback play, which is not a new reality, but there's probably a bigger emphasis on that, more than ever before.
Absolutely. So, I think we learned a lot this weekend. I mean, not that we didn't know a lot of the stuff already there, but when you look at when you look at what's going on with the rest of the AFC, yeah, you can maybe get to one of these divisional round games, but if you're going to go much further than that,
yeah,
you got to have that quarterback play.
Yeah, you can be a 9-10 win team, competitive in the hunt without a top level quarterback. There are several examples of that this season and in recent years. But are you really going to make a run? Are you going to be a Super Bowl contender? Almost certainly not until you find that guy, or you just get incredibly lucky in one game.
Right.
All right, Dave, a lot of Steelers news to get to. We wanted to talk about divisional weekend because of just how bonkers and how fun, frankly, of a weekend it was here. But some news on the Steelers front this weekend, though it's been kind of rumored and speculated, and certainly this is an expected announcement. Pittsburgh Steelers longtime coach and defensive coordinator Keith Butler has announced his retirement. And so almost or probably about 30-year career in coaching, a linebacker in the NFL for 10 years with Seattle, and a good linebacker at that. Keith Butler been with the Steelers since 2003, and now he's announced his retirement from the Steelers as DC. So I know he was a guy that was criticized quite a bit. And listen, I was as critical of him as anybody for a time there a couple of years ago. But I think today the right thing to do is just kind of celebrate his coaching career and just a really good dude. That seems to be what everyone is saying that knew him personally and talked to him, media guys and people like that. Just a really genuinely good dude. And I'll always respect his loyalty he showed to the Steelers for staying on staff when he probably could have left a decade ago to be a DC somewhere, but waited, until Dick LeBeau retired and ascended to become DC of the Steelers. So a really good dude, great linebackers coach, developed a ton of talent in his career, and we wish him the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of in of an era, if you will, obviously cut his teeth coming up through the Steelers, coaching the linebackers. And boy, he's coached some good ones over the years, hasn't he? And, I think, unfortunately, when you look back at his time spent as defensive coordinator, the sacks will obviously stick out. Last 5 seasons in a row, the Steelers have led the NFL in the total sack category. But you go back and you look. I think one of the bad things on his resume is obviously some of those the amount of points and the amount of yards those defenses gave up in those more recent playoff games, right? I think that's going to be the thing that sticks out the most, or what people point to as a negative when they talk about Keith Butler.
Yeah, everyone kind of knows my stance on him. Like you said, great linebackers coach, could really design some of those blitzes. A guy like Vince Williams was such a perfect fit in Butler's system, getting one-on-ones, getting free shots at the quarterback from a coverage aspect. Things weren't as clean, but I think it's interesting some of the things Keith Butler said, and he spoke to the Post-Gazette, Jerry Dulac, right after the retirement announcement, and said that, Mike Tomlin convinced him to come back for this year just to try to make one more Super Bowl run at it. And so that Butler would contemplated retirement, after the 2020 season. But more interestingly, and the bigger headline is that, and we don't have all the details, it was just one tweet. So I want to caution we don't have the full context probably, but basically Butler saying that Mike Tomlin, was a defensive play caller and that Butler really didn't have a major role in that, at least not recently, in terms of the play calling, which we always kind of knew. Reporters danced around that. It was always speculated. And, it was certainly obvious that Tomlin's influence has grown over the years, but it was the first time we've ever really heard, concrete, definitive, answers, especially, from the Steelers themselves.
Yeah, look, it's stuff that's, we've talked about for years now. So it there is a level of confirmation, albeit stuff we already knew, but not surprising there. But that, make no mistake, now that is out there, and I'm sure that's floated around NFL circles for a while, right? I mean, I think that's a known aspect probably within the coaching fraternity, if you will. That will make it hard for them to attract somebody from the outside, though, I think, unless somebody's just looking, if you have a position coach just wanting to move up because of, he just hasn't gotten a break anywhere else there. Mike Tomlin likes to keep his thumb pretty tight on this. I don't think he really apologizes much for that either there. So within that, yeah, and we'll talk about how this team is now, going through the process of interviewing outside candidates and why and how they have to, but it's going to be a tough to attract one of these bigger names. People, you keep seeing Vic Fangio and some of these other names out there, Zimmer and that kind of stuff. They're not going to, why would a defensive coordinator, anyone that has any type of resume whatsoever, want to come to Pittsburgh just to basically be a puppet of Mike Tomlin's and not really get to make the defensive play calls there. So right. That, that's just a byproduct of who Mike Tomlin is. And until he changes that, then, even though they're doing all these interviews right now, I still fully expect Teryl Austin to be the guy.
I do as well, and that has been the reporting that Austin is expected to be the successor. That's coming from multiple different sources, but this team will have to do external hires. They have to do that to at least fulfill the Rooney Rule mandate, and I apologize.
Interviews, yeah, not hires.
interviews. I apologize. I said last night the rule is only one external minority candidate. It's two. They had updated that rule initially. I think in 2020 it was one. They updated and revised it to two external minority candidates to be interviewed for all coordinator roles. And so one has already been requested. This came out late last night. On Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers are requesting an interview with Giants DC Patrick Graham, who's also interviewing for the Giants head coaching vacancy. Probably won't get it, but he'll be at least in the mix. And so Graham's status a bit in limbo as a Giants clean house with a new GM they just hired, Joe Shane from Buffalo. And again, they're looking for their new head coach as well. And so that's one request. We don't know for sure if it's been granted and how that's going to go and things like that. But that's one name from an external standpoint to watch for right now.
Yeah, look, it sounds like a lot of Giants fans, at least the ones that are in the know, like Graham, and probably hoping that he stays through and a lot of times that doesn't happen like that. But I mean, sounds like he's got a pretty impressive resume there. But is it going to be enough to get him to convince the Steelers to go to drag? And would he even take the job?
Right.
Because of maybe some of the limitations that would be put on him as a play caller.
Yeah, it may depend on what the Giants do at head coach. If they hire an offensive guy like Brian Daboll, for example, which seems to be one of the favorites, then Graham may stay as DC because he may have more control on that side of the ball. If they hire a Leslie Frazier, he may be less control. Obviously, in Pittsburgh, there won't be that much control either. But we'll just have to wait and see. So that is one name. Graham comes from that Belichick tree. His first NFL job was with the Patriots. He worked under Brian Flores, worked under Joe Judge, obviously. The past 2 years. And so that's kind of the tree that he comes from. But you're right. The report on him is he's a good, well-respected, well-liked DC. I don't have a great feel for a scheme right now. So I talked to a Giants buddy last night that said a lot of stunts, a lot of inverted cover two, a lot of simulated pressure and creepers and stuff like that. So kind of jives with some of the things Pittsburgh likes to do. So we'll keep you posted on that. Just as of right now, just a request. This was no interview that's taken place. And again, I still believe Terrell Austin probably will ultimately be the hire.
Is this a cover two world now like it was back in the late 70s, early 80s? I mean,
when Bud Carson put it in Pittsburgh. I think I don't know.
Just in general, just in general. Mm-hmm. Not just in Pittsburgh, but sure. NFL wise,
it's become a too high world. I don't know if that's strict cover two. There's still so many variations you can run, more quarters, more two-man, things like that. So I don't know if I'd have to look at the data on some of the cover two specific type stuff, but I think it's certainly become much more of a too high world than the one high world it was, 5 years ago.
So you better be able to throw the cover two hole shot, right? You better be. You better have to. You better be able to anyway. But that's why not many quarterbacks in the NFL right now better at throwing that cover two hole shot than Matthew Stafford right now. So maybe that's something to think about moving forward into the playoffs and all like that. But look, you got to be able to and a lot of these defenses do a good job. It's not necessarily a second safety that's too high either. You seeing a lot more inversion, I think, now than what you have over the course of the last, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I'm usually not crazy about inverted cover two or inverted coverages. They just don't seem to work as cleanly in terms of, landmarks and depth and leverage and things like that. For example, Pittsburgh ran inverted cover two on the Travis Kelce touchdown on 3rd and 20 in that wild card loss. And there were some issues there, I think, a little bit with the leverage with the corner that kind of got Edmonds off a spot. So I'm not crazy about it. But yeah, I think teams are always trying to disguise looks, confuse quarterbacks post snap, and just make them think an extra second and just kind of change that picture pre and post snap to try to allow your pass rush to maybe have that extra tick to get home.
All right. Where to?
Well, just to wrap up the conversation with the DC again, they'll have to interview at least one. They'll have to interview Graham, which has not happened yet. So let's assume that it happens. Though they'll have to interview at least one more minority external candidate to fulfill that updated Rooney rule. And so, a hire is not going to be made on Austin anytime immediately, not today, probably not tomorrow, because they have those are the things they have to do. Austin does not count to the Rooney Rule quota because he's an internal candidate. So, probably won't get a decision till maybe end of week. He'd like to have that settled in before the Senior Bowl, but if Austin's going to be the guy and he's already on staff, it's probably a little less urgent to fill that role.
Right, and they're probably going to, you would think Austin might make his way down to the Senior Bowl anyway, right? So it's not like you're losing time and it wouldn't surprise me if now we end up waiting to hear a couple more of these. In other words, the word of Austin being official might now not come until the week after this team gets back from the Senior Bowl. So anyway, it can happen at any time, but they have to get these interviews, these minority candidates at least taken care of there. So I don't know. This is a long week. They probably don't fly out to the Senior Bowl until when? Friday?
Yeah, probably. And the Senior Bowls, I don't know how it looks in the COVID world, but it's a time where it's kind of a coaching workshop. All the coaches are down there, employed, unemployed, and they're looking for jobs. They talk to people. So interviews could be happening down at the Senior Bowl for all we know, because that's kind of like the Combine, a place where everyone kind of gets together, the whole coaching world, whole NFL world's in one place. And that's a time that kind of lends itself to getting to know some of these guys.
Yep. Just dropped out again there, but I'm back. Absolutely. You're right.
Yeah. Apologize. I know Dave's had there's some internet gremlins in Vegas today. So apologize for any audio droppings that happened throughout the rest of today's show, but I think we'll all be okay. One other thing I want to mention here in terms of Monday interviews, this was reported on Friday or Saturday, I believe, by NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Omar Khan is interviewing with the Bears today for their GM spot. The request of the interview came in over 10 days ago. So it's taken a while. The Bears have really gone through a lot of candidates so far. Some are about to be on their second interview. So we'll see if what that means for Khan's chances here. But Khan interview with the Bears happening today.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I know a lot of fans of the Steelers are hoping maybe Khan actually gets hired away this time because of what it would bring as far as a draft pick and all goes like that. But look, I've always liked Omar Khan, and I'm a bit surprised at this point that he's still yet to get his own front office job, GM job. So it'd be interesting to see this play out.
Yeah, it will be. My sense, and again, things can change, and I'm not pretending like I'm super plugged into what's happening with the Bears coaching search, but the fact that Khan is being interviewed so late in this process, they have a second interview with one of their guys tomorrow, lends me to kind of believe Khan's not a super big front runner for this job. Now, that can change, and you never know what can happen. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but my fairly strong suspicion is that Khan is not going to get this job.
Okay.
But we'll see. And if he does, then Pittsburgh will get a pair of third-round compensatory picks in the 2022 and 2023 NFL drafts. So if they lose them, which would suck, there will be a silver lining to it.
All
right, Dave, anything else here you wanted to talk about? Anything else Steelers-related that I might have missed? I think we're good from a transaction standpoint, but any other Steelers thoughts in your head?
Look, I'll have a start on my salary cap stuff this week. I'm a day behind and all like that, but expect a kind of a full overview now that we have a working rule of 53 to deal with and those kind of things. And this thing's going to obviously kind of move fast here once we get closer to the Super Bowl and some of these void years coming up as well too. Is going to be a lot of interesting discussion. There was the report, I think, yesterday on Dwayne Haskins. A lot of these people reported as news, but it's there's been a lot of news being reported that's not news, but it makes the rounds because of the national writers hitting on it, stuff with Butler and Austin and those kind of things. And then there was obviously a report over the weekend about Dwayne Haskins and how it's this revelation that the Steelers are going to be able to keep Dwayne Haskins on a original round tender. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been saying that ever since the kid was signed his deal last year, how if they got into a spot where there's enough there and he keeps his nose clean that he will be easily retained by original round tender, even though he is a former first round draft pick. Well, now that's coming out as news, and that's something we've been telling people all along here. So 2.54, I think, is the actual number, and Now it seems guaranteed that they're going to restricted tender him by the start of the new league year, but I think we already knew that anyway.
Yeah, I already knew that from the time that he was signed, that if things went, not horribly, he would likely come back on that tender. And when Haskins said, he talked to Colbert and said he'd be given a chance to compete for the starting job, that also kind of implied that they were going to put the tender on him. So no guaranteed money with that. If it doesn't work out, you can cut him and you're not on the hook for any sort of guaranteed or dead money to that effect. So yeah, it was a bit of a Seinfeld weekend of news. News about nothing, news we already knew, but it hasn't happened yet either. So we'll revisit this conversation whenever it does actually take place, whenever he actually does get tendered in a couple weeks, I'm guessing. So we'll have this conversation at least one more time.
Let me ask you this about Joshua Dobbs. Obviously, spent the whole season on the reserve injured list. I would like to think that he's over that foot injury by now, or at least will be by the time the offseason program gets underway here. If he's up to still playing and is willing to re-sign a veteran benefit contract, are you re-signing him?
Sure, I am. I guess at this point, I only have two quarterbacks in that room. Yeah, just to compete. Smart guy, mobile guy. We'll see how that plays. I don't know what his track would be, and depending on who you add, I mean, is there a guarantee he even makes it to camp? Probably not right now, depending on what happens in the offseason. But yeah, if he wants to come back, I think at this point, whenever your quarterback room is so open, you want to add as much competition as you can and just try to see, who rises to the top of that and have these guys battle. And it's good for accountability and not let Haskins get too comfortable and things like that. So yeah, it's not costing you much of anything. So I do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I think at this point, I assuming he still wants to play, I will be surprised where I sit right now if he's not back up under contract by the time, I don't know, into March rolls around.
Yeah, just a question of does he want to potentially explore options, but Pittsburgh will probably give him the best opportunity given the wide openness of the quarterback room and his familiarity with the system, and they know him and he knows them and those kinds of things. So I imagine Pittsburgh kind of would be an attractive fit to him this offseason.
Right.
So we shall see. Speaking of quarterbacks, Dave, really exciting day for Steelers Depot. The first of hopefully well over 200, 256 is actually our target goal here of 2022 NFL Draft Player Profiles. First one going up this morning on Steelers Depot from Mark Jonathan Heitritter, a quarterback report on North Carolina's Sam Howell. And so I wanted to start things off with a quarterback because of the quarterback focus of this offseason, potentially at least, and that will be one name I think that'll be in connection with Pittsburgh throughout this time. And so Sam Howell report going up there. You can check out the report from Jonathan over on Steelers Depot, the good, the bad, the bio. We have a new grading system and grading scale that kind of tries to quantify our thoughts and feelings on these guys better than we have in the past. So I don't have any concrete thoughts on Howell yet. He'll be at the Senior Bowl. I'm excited to watch him there. I'm excited to watch him more this week. I have watched a little bit of him and kind of obviously read Jonathan's report, which is excellent and really, I think, recaps his ability well. But our first report, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Howell or just on, again, the quarterback class at large.
I watched a little bit of him over the weekend here. I made it a point to try to get through. So here's something else I'm going to be doing as part of some contextualizations now is I found an easy plotter for doing some of these old ways we used to do way back when the earth was cooling of doing quarterback charts and all. And look, I mean, as far as individual team sites go, I like to think the Steelers Depot is one of the first that did that kind of stuff. But let me tell you, it was a pain in the butt to do as well. Now they've got things where you just put the mouse on there and you click it and it puts the right size dot, right? Anyway, it's a lot easier to chart these. So I'm going to try to do a lot of charting of especially 2021 games of some of these top quarterbacks in the class to see which ones, and I obviously marry some of the data to it and all, and see some of these quarterbacks be able to attack the middle of the field or outside the numbers and those kind of things to help visualize this, these quarterbacks a little bit more as well too. So that's something I have planned as far as this draft process. And back to Howell, man, it's mighty hard to get past that bias of his size, very, very hard. But for a guy of his size and all, he can he's got some mobility to him. He's got some arm strength to him as well too. Now I want to get more into some of his decision making and look more at some of this all 22 on him to see some of the specific things that he's looking at and all like that. But if you can get past the metrics end of him, the height and weight and that kind of thing. I mean, he's an impressive dude, but it is, at least for someone like me who grew up in a traditional 6'3", 225 quarterback world, and coming off of a guy like Roethlisberger, and just looking around just the landscape of the NFL overall, admittedly so, it's tough for me to get past some of these biases when it comes to quarterback height, and I better, because there's a lot of shorter, a lot of undersized quarterbacks at the top of this year's draft class, right? I think you have.
Right.
In fact, I think Carson Strong is about as ideal as they go as far as measurables go. A lot of these other ones, Malik and even Pickett is a little bit undersized. He might be the tallest of the rest of the bunch, though. But even he's a little bit undersized.
Yeah,
I didn't realize Malik was as short as he is.
What's he listed at? What's Malik Willis at? He's like 6'1", 6'2". Oh, I think you dropped out again. I'll wait for you to come back here. Let me know whenever you come back, Dave, and what the height on Malik Willis is. Is he 6'2"? I don't know what the official or the unofficial or listed number is on Malik Willis in terms of his height.
I'm sorry, my thing just keeps cutting out there, Alex, but I'm looking that up right now. Draft Scout has him as 6'005".
Okay. Yeah, again, there's no official weigh-in for the Senior Bowl, but whenever we get measurements, because Willis and Howell and Pickett will all be there, I think those numbers will certainly be examined 17 times over by the draft Twitter internet. And so we'll see on that what the official numbers are. I'm not as concerned with the height or lack thereof with those guys because, as you said, the landscape has changed so much. And even some of the quarterbacks that are top guys today, Aaron Rodgers is 6'2", Matthew Stafford 6'2", and Howell's not a small guy. He's really well built. He's 6'1", listed at 220, a really thickly, kind of unusual body size for the quarterback position with the height and the weight. So I'm not terribly concerned with that aspect of things.
Especially now where more of the pro games imitating the college game and the quarterback's on the move, right?
Right, yeah, and it's about, do you check the other boxes? Do you have the arm strength and mobility? And I think Howell, from a baseline level, I've said this before, and I haven't done a deep dive in his game, but he has the arm strength, he has the mobility, he has the toughness, and so I think that's a good foundation to work with when evaluating a quarterback. I think Jonathan's comp and one common comp with Howell is Baker Mayfield, which certainly will not make Steeler fans feel too good about the prospects of Sam Howell. One name it was kind of kicking around my head. I did some kind of research last night on quarterbacks with similar height, weights, and just career arcs potentially. And you tell me if this is a good comp or not. David Garrard was a name that kind of popped in my head for Sam Howell. A really good arm, thickly built. They're both Carolina kids. They both grew up in North Carolina a couple hours apart. I just kind of a comparison that probably is unusual to make, unless people won't have, but kind of struck me when I was kind of going through some stuff last night.
Wow, you went way back, didn't you? At least way back for you, I guess.
Yeah, less for you. I mean, but Garrard was, kind of a squatty, thicker body type of guy, fairly mobile, not elite mobility, but a really big arm, had Hail Marys in his career. So that was kind of a comp, which you probably won't see many people comp that way, but that was kind of what popped into my head.
What was his official, let's see, East Carolina.
Went to ECU.
6'0", 235 was.
Yeah, he's a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, but similar.
Okay, all right, interesting.
Yeah, but I don't have any. I just the thing I mentioned before. Maybe I'm locking onto it too much. I'm trying to avoid that because of this quarterback process. You're going to cast a wide net, but Howell's the name I keep thinking about. The Steelers are going to like this guy. They've shown some interest in during the college season and stuff like that. So just a name that I can't get rid of.
Okay, Jonathan seems to like him.
Yeah, his official score was in our Depot grading scale. There's a link to the grading scale, and Jonathan created that, so kudos to him. 8.6 year one quality starter was the grade that he put on Sam Howell.
All right. And I guess now would be a time to tease what we're going to do on Wednesday, or hope to do on Wednesday, if Dave's internet can stay connected.
Yeah, we're going to have one of the draft roundtables here, hopefully. So it'll be myself, Dave, Josh Carney, Jonathan Heitritter, and maybe Devin Jackson as well. We're still confirming scheduling things with him. So we'll have that. And of course, most of those guys, Josh will be at the Shrine Game, Jonathan at the Senior Bowl. I'll be at the Senior Bowl. So we'll do some stuff. I don't know if we'll do it while we're down there because it might be tough to do, but certainly whenever we get back, we'll have more probably depot draft roundtable discussions.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to have to, I think the goal is to have 5 of us on that call on Wednesday, and probably going to be doing a lot of talk about quarterbacks during that call.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So we'll have more profiles going up again. The start of them happening on Monday. We'll have probably one a day for the next at least several days, if not for a little while now. I don't know who's going to go up tomorrow. I think there's a couple Jonathan has saved right now. I have one on a linebacker as well. I'll probably do one of the Jonathans on an offensive lineman that is worth profiling.
All right.
All right, Dave, any other final thoughts here? Steelers stuff that I haven't addressed. We have our Steelers awards, Steelers Depot awards we're handing out throughout the week. So I have my ballot cast today. We'll finish that up later in the week. I didn't go TJ Watt defensive MVP. That might ruffle some feathers. I went Cam Hayward, but you can see all the awards on Steelers Depot.
All right, and I'm going to try to get some together myself by the end of the week. On top of that, and once again, we're moving into off-season mode here, and going to be working a lot on the salary cap stuff and trying to give people a good idea of what this team's looking at from a caps perspective.
Yep, always looking forward to that. I know you're going to set things straight because in a year, probably more than ever, it sounds like there's more misinformation about the Steelers cap in this situation than, like I said, ever really before.
All right. What else do we have to talk about? Anything?
I think that's pretty much everything. So I know you're having some internet issues. So let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let me pull this up here real quick and put my glasses on so I can read them. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Justin, thank you to everyone who visited the site over the weekend. Really good traffic for a weekend in which the Steelers did not participate, which was a pleasant surprise. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. And draft season kicking up. So we have just kind of turned that light switch right on the off-season draft mode.
Absolutely. Let's go to Chandler Stroud. Morning, fellas. Happy Monday. Quickly want to say to you guys that in your guys' scouting, I highly suggest that when you get to Matt Corral's film, you go to his 2020 season junior year game against my home state of Arkansas. The guy threw 6 interceptions against them, against a consistent 8-man coverage. Arkansas has Barry Odom, who is widely known as one of the better defensive minds in college football. He's a very talented quarterback with a lot of upside, I believe, but I also believe it's very important to address the guy's downside. We never address people's downsides, though, Alex, do we? We always we always address look, Chan, I get where you're coming from. We've done this a long time. We try to take at least 3 games when we look at, and the thing is there's the time aspect as well too. So and then there's the tapeability aspect as well too. So we definitely, now that I've read your email there, I'll definitely, I don't know if I'll be doing the profile on him, probably not, but definitely. We always try to go back and look at least the last 2 seasons, as part of the review process. Once again, the tape's not always there on that, but it doesn't sound like maybe you're that high on Matt Corral just because of that one game. He says also not that the Steelers are going wide receiver in the round, but also Arkansas wide receiver Treylon Burks will be the best wide receiver in the class. Bigger hands than Julio Jones, OBJ, and DeAndre Hopkins with 4.3 speed at 230. Just a side thought there, but once again, thank you, and thanks for continually make the best content there is. Thanks, Chandler, for the email.
Thank you.
Let's see. Bryce, to me, Matt Canada is the Kendrick Green of offensive coordinators, a guy who some people think by making certain adjustments, i.e. Green moving to guard, Canada getting more quarterback mobility, blah, 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 will somehow cover up the huge warts and flaws in their games. The problem, as both of you guys have pointed out, are technical. Green at guard will still have major technical issues, and getting those new pieces of offense won't change Canada's lack of anticipation, inability to adjust in games, or uneven play calling. With a situation that stands better to move on from Canada and build anew. Good luck. Good luck with that wish, Bryce. It certainly seems like all signs are pointing to Canada staying at least one more season there. What would you say the Steelers need more of at wide receiver? Explosive speed guys or tremendous route runners who shake you out of your boots for separation? You can only pick one. I mean, obviously you want as much as well-rounded as a guy that you could have. Look, I remember Mike Wallace. I remember looking at college tape on Mike Wallace way back, and Mike Wallace had a lot of warts that came with him with that speed. He was a body catcher. He had occasional drop issues. He wasn't the smoothest of route runner in tight quarters, but holy moly, that guy could get over the top, you know? And I tell you right now, the Steelers missed that guy that can get up over the top and make the 65-yard scores that way. And they also missed a guy that can catch the football over the middle of the field, 17 yards down the field, and go the rest of the way that way there too. So, look, this team's probably not going to go after an X-type receiver, so you could probably rule that out. Are they necessarily going to go with a Z-type receiver? It's possible they don't. They might still think, Chase Claypool is that guy. What are they going to do at maybe a potential slot type guy? Maybe that could be a guy that here's the thing about Tyreek Hill is you can move him around all in that formation, right, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. He plays everywhere, and he's just that talented to do that. Yeah. It's, in a vacuum, I understand the question. I mean, I think, ultimately my answer would be speed, but you don't want just a pure speed guy who just runs fast and that's it, because there's an obvious downside to that. What happens with Juju? If they don't re-sign Juju, that's a big void in the slot. Sure. And will they look for a big slot guy to replace that role? Because there is no one internally, as we found out, that can really, really replace Juju in terms of that specific skill set. So, that's one concern on my head. Will they, allocate their draft capital to receiver to the big slot kind of role if Juju walks? So if they retain him, then maybe you focus on more speed because you got to have Juju locked down. If they don't retain Juju, then they may have to switch gears and look for that route runner or, Juju type of guy.
And look, they have the track record when it comes to, some of these Z's sometimes that we've seen in the past, that those guys usually take about a half a season to get them on the field. Remember how long it took to get Martavis Bryant on the field? It took like to week 8 or something. Mm-hmm. And didn't he make his debut? I think, was it against the Texans?
Yep.
And just had a huge game once he did there. I'm biased here, but I want that guy that can stretch the field that way. And look, you want to talk about having biases against height and weight and all. It's hard to get past it with that Devin Tompkins kid out of Utah State. That guy, I think Alex is bigger than him. But this kid's a lot better wide receiver, I'm willing to bet, than Alex is. Look at that kid's tape and tell me what you think about. Everybody's gonna be looking for the next Tyreek Hill now, right? Or not that they haven't been anyway, but. And I'm obviously not deep in to look at some of these guys, but you want somebody body in that mold that's got kind of that, speed, that Devin Tompkins kid, and he plays like he's 6'1", even though he's not. He can really make some contested catches above the rim, as the kids like to say there. So that's where I'm at, Bryce. I would like to have somebody that I could throw the football down the field to go get and score 65 yards on a play.
Yeah, I think that element's always been important of the Steelers Super Bowl teams, whether that was the speed of a Stallworth or even a Frank Lewis in those first 2 Super Bowls, and Nate Washington, to a degree, a Cedric Wilson, a Mike Wallace. The Steelers have always kind of had those burner guys that really stretches a defense and really helps you out in so many ways, big and small. So we'll see, though. But yeah, just the bottom line is this team needs to find ways to get more explosive plays offensively and limit those big plays defensively.
Chuck Griffith writes in on a recent podcast, I heard Jordan Palmer say great things about Carson Strong, the Bills' development of Josh Allen, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I realize that this is only one data point and that there are many paths forward, but here's my initial wish list for the offseason. He says, one, sign a veteran center. He says, you and Alex discussed Ryan Jensen to handle O-line calls and help young quarterbacks in their learning. Number two, he's got signed tight end Blake Bell as a tight end number 2 or tight end 3 to help mentor Pat Freiermuth and Zach Gentry or other tight end and bring in and bring some lessons from the KC offense. I go back, look, I think we talked about Blake Bell not too long ago. I was on the Blake Bell wagon way before everybody else there. Now, he's not a number 1 guy. He's more of a number 2 guy. Probably going to be a little if the Steelers are happy with Freiermuth and Gentry right now, it'd probably be a bit of a surprise to see them go out there and spend a little bit of money on Blake Bell. I don't even know Blake Bell's contract status right now. Number 3, if Carson Strong checks all the Steelers boxes, take him at number 20. There'd be no reason to play around to see if he's still there in the second. If he is the guy that Jordan Palmer says he is, take him. According to Palmer, part of his limited mobility was due to rehabbing while playing. He said, Chuck goes on to say he finally re-upped the ad-free version. Thanks for all the Steelers Depot staff from the Steelers fans. Look, I think one of the most interesting elements I can't wait to hear Alex and the rest of these guys go down to Senior Bowl talk about is how is Carson Strong's mobility. You don't have to convince me on any other part of his game, man. I've watched every game of the last 2 seasons. I guarantee you that. There's some great articles out there, I think on like Nevada Sports or one of those independent Nevada websites that does a fantastic job covering the team. They got a lot of talk about what he had to go through, especially this last season, just to play and all like that. But there is, I'm worried about that mobility long-term, whether or not it was, no matter how much these other guys, and if Palmer is his quarterback's coach, which I think he is, isn't he? Jordan Palmer?
I can look. It sounds right.
But if he is, why would he say all these rosy things about Carson Strong, to help us draft stock?
Yeah, that's true. He is working with Jordan Palmer to some degree, at least. Blake Bell's probably not going to happen because you have Freiermuth, Gentry, and I get the veteran leadership. I don't know about bringing stuff over from the Chiefs offense. I mean, unless you're talking about like the quarterback sneaks that he kind of runs on 3rd and short. Strong, we'll see. I don't know if I'll get a great feel for his mobility in Mobile just because in practice, obviously the quarterback can't be touched. So it is kind of hard to gauge some of that stuff, but you can kind of see how he feels and moves around a little bit. And there'll be some lessons to be learned there, especially for someone who hasn't watched him as much like me. But yeah, I mean, it's this quarterback class, it's not that it's a, great A+ class, but it's very closely bunched together. And what happens in Mobile might really start separating some of these guys. And you have to be careful of overreactions and putting too much stock into, don't go all Dave Gettleman and watch Daniel Jones for one practice and declare he's your guy kind of thing. But because these quarterbacks are so tightly bunched up and there is no clear front runner, that's going to make this week in Mobile all the more important. All right, Dave, what else do we have here from the email machine?
See. Charles Downing writes in, let's see. Dante, scouting and projecting quarterbacks. Good day, gentlemen. I realize there are elements when it comes to evaluating quarterback prospects: arm strength, accuracy, pocket awareness, leadership, poise, mechanics, mobility, ability to exhaust progressions, ability to go off script, and much, much more. What do you guys value the most when it comes to scouting quarterbacks and projecting them to the NFL in 2022? And has there been a quarterback whose success or failure in the NFL surprised you years later after watching tape on them? Asking these questions after experiencing the Allen Mahomes masterpiece, where they have raised the bar to an absurd level. Can't wait for the offseason contact and see how the quarterback class will emerge. Nobody does harder than Depot. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you, Dante.
Thank you.
Man, I mean, quarterbacks, obviously, nothing's an exact science when you get into this stuff. It's just you're constantly learning more and more things about the evaluation process and all like that. And as much as we even get of the tape now, you don't get there's still a lot of the aspect of the process that we don't get to see, that scouts and we're talking to coaches and all like that helps that help like the leadership. And I mean, right. you can somewhat see that at least through articles or maybe some interviews, but we don't we don't have just one guy that's a quarterback person that stays on quarterbacks and then goes around all the country to there's just that level that we are never going to have there, because from a time and outsider aspect there. Look, mechanics, obviously, a big part of it, pocket awareness. I mean, a lot of things that you mentioned right there, Dante, I think we all kind of look at. Arm strength is big with me, man. I mean, I not only arm strength to be able to throw that, that 12-yard out on a rope, but more than 45 yards down the field with some muster on it around two. Most of these quarterbacks nowadays are able to throw the football 40 yards, right? Or should be able to. But what does that throw look like? What does it look like past there? That's big, because I mean, a lot, in the NFL, to me, you got to be able to throw that football more than 45 yards down the field when needed.
Sure. It's the $1 million question, and it's one I wrestle with a lot because I get greedy when it comes to quarterbacks. I think you have to be greedy as a franchise and look for the guy that can do it all or come as close to that as possible, because if your guy has any major deficiencies, the NFL is going to expose that. If his arm sucks, if his accuracy sucks, if his decision-making sucks, if mobility sucks, those things are going to really hinder and hamper your offense. My instinct has always been to say accuracy, decision-making. I think accuracy is still number one for me. If you're not an accurate quarterback, it's really hard to win. In the NFL, you're limited and handcuffed in so many ways, and missing layups and missing big opportunities and things like that. I would probably say,
look, I like to see now, you go back to even not too far long ago when you're looking at Mason Rudolph's tape, and I looked at every single throw that kid made at Oklahoma State there. To go back and look at it again, I would put more emphasis on making sure to look at stuff like the back shoulder type throws. Just look harder at them. Some of the able to create outside of just the heavy RPO usage that he had. Anybody should be able to throw to a wide receiver like James, and look, and evaluating wide receivers. James Washington was wide open quite a bit,
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, to try to answer the question in terms of what I value, and again, I get greedy and want to value it all, I would say accuracy, mobility, and I say that from an in-pocket standpoint and out-of-pocket standpoint. That the in-pocket mobility just as, if not more important, as a mobility when scrambling and leaving the pocket. That ability to throw off platform has become such an important factor in today's NFL. And then overall, the last one I would say would just be probably that football IQ and just knowing the role and having the smarts to be able to win that chess game. And again, there's a million other things I care about with quarterback, but you're trying to create a short list there. I guess that's where it would start for me.
All right, let us go to Chris Wade. Hey guys, love the work you put in. Steeler fans, keep up the great work. When will we be getting a Steelers Depot app? Look, that's one of the things maybe that Alex and I will talk about here. After they get back from Mobile and all like that, we'll see. Would love the content you guys produce in app form someday. Peace and love. Thank you, Chris, for the email there. Carlos Torres writes in, Ben, Tom, and Aaron. Maybe I don't pay enough attention to player position in the NFL, but if Ben, Tom, and Aaron all retire after this year, would that mean two of them get snubbed out of first ballot, or more specifically, Ben and Tom? And more specifically, Ben and Tom, would Ben be snubbed, or can two players from the same position go in the same class? Yeah, it's not a position aspect, I don't think. I mean, it's not like they just have to pick one quarterback to go in. I thought about this a little bit over the weekend, man. Because you go into the weekend not really thinking that maybe Tom Brady's played his last game, or that there's a chance maybe that Aaron Rodgers has played his last game. But I came out of the weekend kind of wondering. I don't think that's going to be the case, but who knows, you know? And what indeed happened if all three of these guys put their retirement papers in it? In other words, and all became eligible at the same time.
Yeah, they're all going to go in the Hall of Fame at the same time. There's no requirement. It can only be one quarterback, and all those three guys are first ballot, no-brainer Hall of Famers to me. Now, I guess of those three, Brady's a shoe-in. He's the most likely to get in, like 100% chance. Would there be any chance that Ben would get snubbed in a class like that? Maybe, but I still think he would get in. But it would be kind of a bummer to see all the. I don't want Brady in my Ben ceremony. I've already dealt with Brady enough as a Steelers fan. I want him away for that one moment. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm with you, Dave. My guess is that Brady and Rodgers do return. Those guys are still playing at such a high level that it'd be a surprise to see them walk away at a time like this. Maybe Brady has a better chance than Rodgers, and Rodgers is always a tough guy to figure out. But I think both those guys are back in 2022.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I thought about too. Was, man, if Brady and Ben did go in the same time, it would be the Brady weekend. It would. Obviously Steeler fans would make the trek there and all like that, but it sure would seem like Tom Brady would overshadow it,
Yeah, it'd be the ESPN Tom Brady weekend, and Ben's here too, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Once again, I apologize about the issues having with connectivity today. Definitely hope to have that back on track. I think it's something local here with the cable company and all like that. Hopefully get that behind me by Wednesday's show and all. So in the meantime, it's a good time probably to call it quits for today. Once again, a lot of great content coming on Steelers Depot this week. Draft profile starting, and I think Matthew has started his exit interview series, which is always entertaining this year as well too. And a lot of the off-season series are going to be kicking in, and there shouldn't be many dull moments if you're looking for something to read Steelers content wise there. That's for sure. So, Alex, anything to add?
Nope, that's everything. We do have a live stream tonight. If you want to join us, hopefully, David, you'll be able to make it with the internet issues. But we'll hopefully have that tonight and hear from you guys with the Steelers season finally over.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up top there. So in the meantime, until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.